guys, it's John. You're on the JRB Tree Climbing channel, and this video is on the Universal System playlist. I've been making you wait for a little while to get on with the business of finishing the system, but there's some options. So first off, I need to make sure you're familiar with the earlier videos on the playlist. When I showed you the system in the introduction, it has 6 hitches on it. That's a lot of hitches, and I do recommend it for use that way. That's the way I generally use it myself. However, there are options to stop at a lesser number of hitches. In my most recent video on the playlist preceding this one, I showed you how we can add a third friction hitch, because there's only 2 on the system to get started, the 2 agile hitches for DSRT that I just got off of. But in order to transform this system into a hitch climbing system, we would need 4 more hitches. But we can start with 2. So for example, a hunter like myself, I mean, a high 90% of my climbs are DSRT and maybe 10% SRT, and it's not too common that I need to hitch climb. So if hitch climbing isn't a common occurrence, what we can do is on one side of the system, the opposite side that we normally put up. So this is the side that I thread up, and it's got a JRB end loop. On the other end, you either have a sewn eye or a poacher's knot. And what we can use this side for is building 1/2 of a hitch climbing system. And if we want to do a hitch climb, the other side we can build on the fly, right? You saw me add SRT on the fly. SRT is 1/2 of a hitch climbing system. So what I'm going to do today, on this side of the system, I'm going to pop on a 523 JRB ascender with a ring, another one underneath it for a foot loop. And the other side of the hitch climbing system, so this will be a 4 hitch system. The other side, if I want to hitch climb, I'll pop a Longhorn Agile on the fly, and I'll use my Garda hitch for it. Okay, let me get set up. Okay, so let's tie some knots. First, I got 2 rappel rings, right? Because I will be needing 1 for my foot loop and 1 for my friction hitch. So I'm going to take these and put them over the end of my rope. Now, what's the easiest way to get a rope in a tree? It's a saddle hunter's hitch. So I'm just going to toss one on there. And now I'm going to get started. I have 2 6-foot lengths of 7mm sterling cord, and if you refer to the length specifications page on the JRB tree climbing website, you will confirm that we use a 26-inch standing end to form a 523 JRB ascender. So you're not going to be able to follow this. I'm using camouflage cord on camouflage rope. Please refer to the video. I will leave in the video description, I will leave links to anything you need to duplicate what I'm doing here. We have detailed knot tying videos on everything that I have created. I'm going to just get on with the business of tying a 523. And we'll be making 2 of these, 1 for the bridge connection and 1 for the foot loop. Okay, now you'll notice how these ends are different lengths, but they're going to become even when I get this whole thing secured. So as per the prior, that's a standard 523. And now as we transform it into the non-jamming compact variant, I start to engage first with the left side. I've captured the ring, and now with the right side I will capture the other side of the ring And the last step is tying our stopper knot. Before we do so, by the way, look how these ends, they came out really, even because we used the correct starting length. But what we want to do is we want to jam this thing up. We want to get it as tight as we can get it. So I'm going to pull as hard as I can on both ends, such that, it's even a little hard to move. Why? Well, because a little bit of slack is going to creep in when we tie our stopper knot. And we may need to adjust this in the future. We typically do as it breaks in. But the best set job we can get will be by taking these and making them really tight. I now make my overhand stopper knot. And if you saw the prior video on the non-jamming JRBUS center, I will use 2, and there's plenty of room to do that. But let's get it set first. Let's get it set. Repeatedly pulling on each end. Let's get my bridge. Let's connect to this. See, it's a little stiff. It's hard to move. That's okay. Sit on it. So just after that much time, you can see how it's expanded. Like I said, the cord stretches, it breaks in. Okay, that would probably climb perfectly. But when it comes, your ability to tie this knot might be a little different than mine. In order to tune it, we simply take that stopper knot and we pull on it. Pull as much slack as we can out of the hitch. See, I got probably almost maybe 3/4 of an inch, almost 2 centimeters out of that, and I'll adjust my stopper knot. We generally need to do that. Depends on the cord and its stretch properties, but if you find your hitches getting too long or after they're broken in, that's all we have to do. We basically just reset that stopper knot to take out as much slack as we can. And with that, I'll tie the second stopper knot and move on. So I don't like to make things appear any easier than they are. I don't look forward to tying these knots, but I like to do them correctly and get them right. Now obviously I could trim. I went a little longer than I needed, as we always should, so I could trim that back, but we're going to just tie another one. Now, since I'm about to repeat the same process, we may accelerate the speed so you don't have to watch it a second time, but I'll repeat that exercise, this one for my foot loop. Okay, so in my haste I might have mismeasured that one a little bit, but that's a nice thing about using a little extra cord. We've got plenty to work with. But now I've got to build the actual foot loop part. So in the prior video, in the first generation of this, I used 6 feet of webbing. Now I'm going to use a little bit more. This is 7 feet of webbing. And I'm basically going to tie a variant of the water knot. It's really just an overhand end loop, but I have to have it threaded. So what am I talking about? Let's get in and take a closer look at this. So what I'm going to do is I'll create an overhand knot. Just creating an overhand knot. I'm kind of guessing here with my exact lengths, just doing this by eye. I have an overhand knot waiting for me. I'm now going to put that through the ring, and then I'm going to re-thread it. And I did that intentionally facing the back side, so I know that it will thread. There's only 2 ways you can place this, and one way won't allow you to retrace. I'm not fine-tuning this. It's just an overhand knot. I've got a little extra room, I can make this a little bit more compact if I wanted to, but let's leave it like that. And then I will repeat and make another one on the other side. Here's an overhand knot. It's just a variant of the water knot. So that's just a little bit sloppy. I might want that tail a little bit longer, but you know, I could clean that up, but I've done it. I built myself a foot loop. Let's test that. Okay, I'd like you to have a look at the system after it's all cleaned up before we go back to the climb site to finish the video. And I apologize for any audio difficulties we were having as we were trying out a new camera. So here I have the end of the rope attached to the tree using a Maverick hitch. And this is the end we created. There's the very 523 non-jamming JRB ascender where we attach our bridge for our hitch climb. Move down. Here is the foot loop, and I retied that. It was bothering me, and sure enough, in my haste and in my talking, I mismeasured 24 instead of 26 inches for my working end. I retied that, came out perfectly. And here's the end loop. I also cleaned those up and measured, and the measurement was a 22-inch end in order to get those just perfect. And we want that to be adequately compact. We want to make sure that when we put our foot in the foot loop, that the top of this comes, you know, somewhere around the top of our knee, so we can easily reach down and grab the rope for purposes of ascent. But we want a little space between our two friction hitches. We don't want our foot loop banging up into our primary point of attachment. The exact geometry can vary, but I'll go ahead and recommend that which I tied here, which was a 7-foot length of 1-inch tubular webbing. Okay, let's give the whole system, one side of a hitch climbing system, a quick test. I'll push these back a little bit, give me a little bit of room. I'm going to form a Maverick hitch. I think it's important that my viewers see how long it takes me to do things in a real world scenario, how long it takes to tie these hitches and to use them in practical applications. Everything we needed to build a hitch climbing system, all the building blocks, they were already on the channel. So some of you have moved ahead and gotten started. All right, so let's hook into this and give it a quick test. I'll take my bridge. I will engage both the rappel ring and the rope. I will shorten my bridge. And I'm breaking in a new saddle, and I'm realizing that these bridge loops are different lengths on different saddle manufacturers. So this one, a very comfortable saddle from Ape Canyon, but the bridge loops are longer, so it's a little harder to get close to your hitch. Foot in the foot loop. And so now let's just do a short SRT climb. Hitch climbing is SRT, right? It is SRT. But I don't have redundancy. My bridge, I got a single pointed connection to the rope here, and my foot loop is my other connection. So if something went wrong with my friction hitch, I'd be, you know, stuck on my foot loop, and rappel would be more difficult. So I do consider this to be a higher risk climbing method. There are some ways to add redundancy. We could have a head-in knot riding up above this friction hitch to give us some kind of redundancy. I have climbed that way. It didn't bother me, but it impeded the maximum height I could get to. But meaning how close I could get to my hitch. So that Worked great. Let's get a little higher. I'm going to unlock. My Maverick is unlocked. What I'll do now is I'll lengthen this bridge a little bit, and that'll give me a little bit more working room for rappel. One of the things I really like about my double adjustable bridge. Either one can be long or either one can be short. Now I'm ready to rappel. And with my left hand, besides feeding slack into the munter, you can see I'm pushing another friction hitch out of the way, the one for my foot loop. So that's one side of a hitch climbing system, or you could consider an SRT system. The other side of the system, right? The other side, if we wanted to do a true hitch climb, I got to that location and I want to switch over, well, then we could do SRT on the fly. That's the reason I showed you these videos in this order. We can do SRT on the fly by putting a Longhorn Agile on here. So I hope I'm making sense to you. You could rig both sides of your system exactly like I rigged that one side, or one side that way and the other side SRT on the fly. Now, for your foot loop, because we're trying to stay really compact, I'm going to take the garter hitch. And you've seen me do this before, but I'm going to take the end of the webbing, I'm going to put it inside of the garter, which effectively has made my garter half the size. And I could put both feet in there. Leveraging what we learned from SRT on the fly, we can make the other side of our hitch climbing system an SRT on the fly system. So here's the other end of the rope attached to the tree with a Maverick, and the end, the actual end, well, I've got those two Agile hitches, which I'm not using right now. These are the ones that we use for the DSRT climb. We simply shove them out of the way. If they're bothering us, we can remove them, but there they are on the end. Here I popped on a Longhorn Agile. This can be the other side of my system for hitch climbing. It's just that it's installed at the climb site. And down lower, I'm using my garter hitch as my means of advancement. It's just that I've got the webbing folded through, so it's now a double foot loop, and it's shorter. Those two foot loops are about the same size. So there's a disadvantage of using the garter in this fashion. Unlike a friction hitch, it can't be back down. Under load, we cannot push this back down. So we've got to accept that possibility that if we have a problem with our friction hitch, we might wind up in a situation where we're stuck on a garter and we would have to retie that, but while standing on one foot. Think about your failure modes. I do prefer having a dedicated foot loop. And of course, both of these can be removed. I have learned the hard way that if these are just flopping around and you're doing a lot of hitch climbing, they could fall off the end of the rope. So when I'm using it in hitch climbing mode, if I don't remove them, I will put an overhand stopper knot just to keep these from flopping off the end of the rope. You see what's going on here? This is the other side of my hitch climbing system. It's just improvised. But there are points to note. There are two different systems. The garter hitch is not releasable under load. So in this situation, if our friction hitch didn't hold, we're stuck on a garter. So we've got to think things through. This is one of the reasons I prefer the six-hitch system. It's got less failure modes. We can always back down a friction hitch. You can't back down a garter. Okay. You get the idea. This is a 4-hitch variant of the system where we add SRT on the fly on one side. And of course, if we wanted to, we could add everything on the fly. But I don't find any advantage in that. Normally I don't do those kind of climbs with the Maverick unlocked, but it was unlocked and now it's down. Okay, well hopefully that made sense. Again, I know it's not going to if you haven't watched the rest of the playlist, but there's your option for a 4-hitch system. And of course the 6-hitch system is exactly what I described in the opening video. Just repeat those 2 hitches I tied today. Just repeat that and do it once more. If you got questions, let me know. Thank you.